My fellow spooky brothers and sisters, horror is full of patterns. Some of them scare us, some of them bore us, and some of them we just can't stop loving. What is going on, horror lovers out there? It is your boy Tech, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Show your boy a little bit of love. I'm a horror fan just like anybody else, so subscribe to the channel if you're new, and comment down below your favorite and most hated horror trope. And come slide with your boy as we go over some of the horror tropes that need to die, and some of the ones that we will love no matter what. Alright, spooky gang, we cutting all the BS and we jumping straight into it. So the very first horror trope that needs to die and that we just completely need to be done with is absolutely the let's split up strategy.
I think we better split up. Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up. I think we better split up. Let's split up and search for this ape man who eats hamburgers.
Now let's split up.
Now wait a minute, hold up. How come every time some scary shit happen that we need to stick together, you white people always say let's split up?
Yeah.
She's right, we should stick together.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
She's right. Okay. You three, follow me.
Ain't that a bitch?
This is a strategy that horror fans are very familiar with. You've seen it as a kid growing up watching Scooby-Doo. You see it in more modern-ish horror movies such as The Descent and The Cabin in the Woods, so on and so forth. With this strategy, every group decides that divide and conquer is going to be the best course of action. And spoiler here, guys, they all die when they do that. I genuinely feel that we're so past this point that this really doesn't even feel believable at this point that anybody would even come up with a strategy. And speaking of which, who even decided that this would be a good strategy? Like, you think about yourself, if you were in a horror movie or you're in a situation that some of these characters are in some of these horror movies, and at what point do you think, like if you're going against Michael Myers or Jason or, some paranormal figure, whatever it is, what makes you think that, oh yeah, if we split up, then our odds are better? No, it's strength in numbers. What the hell would you, why would you do that? That type of thing really blows me. So that is for sure one of those tropes that just needs to end, because at this point, I just do not see the value in it. Like, every time they say that, it just screams, oh, kill me next. The next horror trope that needs to get killed off is for sure the dead phone and no signal situation that people have with their phones. We've seen time and time again, and this goes well beyond horror movies, but especially in horror movies when people are in dire situations.
We gotta be in some kind of sunspot or something. There's no signal getting out.
Perfect. No signal.
No signal.
There's no signal.
No signal. Okay.
All right, I'm fully charged, but there's no signal out here.
Any signal?
Nope.
You got a signal here?
No, just games.
Is anyone getting a signal out here?
No one can get a signal up here.
I can't get a signal.
The movie will zoom in on the screen of a phone and it'll show, oh, no signal. Or it'll be like, they'll be pressing buttons and then the screen doesn't come on and you see, oh, now they don't have a battery at all. And you've seen this from movies like The Strangers, The Forest, Wrong Turn, all that type of stuff. And the reason why they do this, even though I don't agree that they should do this, is really used to isolate characters in the digital age, but really it's overdone. And if we're keeping it a bean, at what point, especially if you're making a modern horror movie, would you ever not have cell signal or be really just that low on battery? And then in these movies, there's always only like 1 or 2 people at most that got a cell phone. Like, it's a whole group of 7 people that's going out camping or whatever they're about to go do, but only 2 people got a cell phone and neither one of them has signal nor does their cell phone work. So you mean to tell me in the big 2025, or really just 2010s plus, we went from 4G to 4G LTE to 5G to this whole thing? We got all types of signals spreading all across the United States and other countries as well. And you telling me these mugs really went to probably the only point on earth where they wouldn't have any type of signal? And then let alone that, who brings their cell phone or really any form of technology for that matter, especially with a lot of these movies? Like I said, they're either going to some cabin or going on some trip or whatever the situation is in the horror movie. Who isn't bringing their cell phone charger? So it's just like, so it's just wild how they continually set themselves up with this stuff. To me, it really starts to become lazy writing more so than that being some spectacular idea that helps move the movie forward. The next horror trope that needs to die is the Indestructible Killer. Now, I know with this one, this is gonna be, you know, probably 50% of the crowd is gonna agree and then the other 50 is not. But I feel like we're so past, you know, some of our favorite horror icons. We appreciate everything that they brought to the genre. So like I mentioned, the Michael Myers of the world, the Jasons of the world, the Freddys, the Leatherface, you know, whoever you want to name. I mean, the majority of those are slashers, but like I said, there's other genres where there are prominent horror figures as well. This whole idea that they can't be destroyed and they receive many, you know, shots to the head, the body, pretty much complete destruction. They somehow, in some way, still find a way to still come back and wreak more havoc in, you know, the 7th, 8th, the 9th, the 10th sequel. Because at a certain point, the suspense ends up becoming nonsense. As it comes down to a point where it's like, okay, if nothing can stop this threat, then why are we trying? So if anything, if they're going to continue this on, then let it be where, okay, there's some limit, you know, they can bleed and they can slow down. They may have to retreat for a hot second, you know, just there's some type of element where it's like, okay, they can be destroyed and some of the efforts and the things that we're doing is actually impacting them. So at the end of the day, we're trying to keep them scary and not silly. The next horror trope that needs to die is the token minority death. Now, I know you've all seen, especially in a lot of your early 2000s slashers, and it's very well known across all of the world where a lot of people say, oh, you know, the black guy dies first, or, you know, whoever the minority character is gonna die at some point. It's like, and the funny part about it is they always just throw that one random person in that has a different race from the rest of the group. It's like these movie production companies are screaming, hey, we support diversity. But at the end of the day, if they die early and they were the only one of color in the movie, then it's just like, what are we doing? They didn't get no type of backstory, no character arc, and clearly no survival.
I'm telling you, man, the black guy always dies first.
The next horror trope that needs to die is the fake out jump scare. Now, this is easily one of the worst and for sure needs to leave all of our horror movies. You know, you think about the cat jumping out of nowhere, or somebody touching somebody's shoulder and they turn around and it's just their friend, and it's just a non-jump scare jump scare. So yeah, like little things like that need to leave because they really provide no real tension building or really any scare value whatsoever. And then the worst part about it is, like, not only do they do that, but every single time that they do that, there's always got to be some loud cue of music where the music also kind of jumps at you, and it's just like, what are we doing here? And so at the end of the day, it ends up making the actual scares be less impactful because you got so much BS jump scares in there. Now, with all of those bad horror tropes out of the way, now let's move on to the ones that we actually love. And so the very first one that we love, and I'm pretty sure that this goes for every single horror fan, and that would be our final girl. Throughout history, and especially in the early phase of our slashers that, you know, came out in the 70s and the 80s, outside of the villain, the final girl is really what drove a lot of those movies. It made fans love them as much as we do. From our Laurie Strodes to our Sidney Prescotts to our Sally Hardestys to our Nancy Thompsons and so on and so forth. Those, like, the final girl was something that kind of started out as a trope and now is more so turned into a symbol of horror. A lone female survivor really shows endurance and that ability to be able to fight back despite the odds and the situations that they may be in. We love the growth, we love the empowerment, we love the revenge aspect, and, you know, when they finally get a chance to get back at whoever the villain or antagonist is in the movie, it's also what helps give horror movies its depth. The next horror trope that we need to keep for sure is the creepy kid. So, you know, when we're talking about creepy kids, I'm talking about, for example, The Omen, The Ring, Hereditary, Orphan. All of these really add something great to horror movies because, you know, from a general point of view, children are innocent, but until they're not, you know what I mean? And some of those creepy kids, when they actually do their role right, it adds a lot to movies, especially movies that are slow burn, because then you get, you know, a real slow reveal of how the kid, you know, goes from what may seem to be this normalish looking kid to being pretty much like this demonic monster. Like, you just never know. Or it's the case where they're not demonic at all, but they're just creepy looking to look at. So like I said, the prime example for me is The Ring, the little boy Aiden. Like, everything about him is so stoic and just, I don't know, just everything, like, you really can't tell what he's thinking, and he's clearly not a bad, you know, he's clearly not a bad child, and, you know, he wants the best for his mom, but it's just like, everything about him is just so nonchalant and stoic that it's like, damn, this little kid is creepy. And I like that element to the movies. Even Charlie in Hereditary, I mean, just something about it is just so odd. Just I don't know. I can't really explain it fully, but yeah, the creepy kid is something that for sure can stay in our horror tropes. The next horror trope that we need to keep, and especially when they're done right, is our found footage horror. The biggest thing about these movies is the fact that they do feel real. So even though it's low budget, it's truly really immersive just because of the fact that it just feels like you could have potentially been the one behind the camera and filming all this stuff, because there isn't a lot of artistry in a lot of ways with just using a cam. So it just feels realistic and something that just any old person could have done in recording a predicament that they're in. The next horror trope that I believe we need to keep, and this one also is semi-debatable, is the don't open that door scene in our horror movies. From our movies like Sinister and The Conjuring, It Follows, it's like with these characters, you know they shouldn't open the door and you beg them not to, but they're gonna do it anyway. And that right there is what makes you lean into the movie and just get that much more immersed, because you're like, oh my god, they did it and I don't know why they did it. And it builds such tension. It builds up until there's some reveal of, you know, some level of a scare or, you know, whatever it may be. You know, it just overall really drives that audience participation, where it's like, I mean, you know, everybody sat with friends watching horror movies and y'all say, oh, don't go in there, oh, don't do that, why did she do that, why did he do that, you know, things of that nature. Like, you're always asking those questions, but once again, it still comes down to execution. As long as, you know, they're not about to creep into a room that they know they shouldn't be going to, just to have somebody tap them on the shoulder, they turn around and it's their best friend, and then they just forget about the fact that they were about to go into a creepy room or something like that. You know, little things like that, as long as those situations are out of the way, then yeah, this really is one of those things that can be truly impactful just because of how engaging it is once they, you know, start doing what you told them not to do. And the last horror trope that I believe should stay and should be here for a good long time is the slow burn psychological horror. This is what you really see in a lot of your more elevated horror movies. So movies that really ride along with the horror, I really try to emphasize points of either whether it be mental health or trauma or, you know, whatever it is. So like a movie like The Babadook, for instance. So in these movies, you really more so get, you know, just creepy and real dread as opposed to jump scares. So it's like it almost makes you uncomfortable before you're even afraid. In a lot of movies that have psychological elements, they linger on well past the credits, and by the time you get home, or even if you watch the movie at home, when it's time to go to bed, you still thinking about it, as opposed to if it was just a jump scare fest and it's just like, ain't nobody remembering that. So that is all I have for you, Spooky Gang. Y'all comment down below, like I said in the intro, what are some of your favorite and most disliked horror tropes? There's plenty of them in the genre, so there are well more than the ones that I even just listed, but y'all comment that down below because I really like to see what you say. And once again, for the people who are new to the channel, y'all go ahead, subscribe to the channel, like the video. We're on the road to 10K subs. YouTube got this thing back up and jumping, so hey, we gonna see it. We gonna try to ride the wave while it's going. So yeah, y'all go ahead, look out for your boy and subscribe and like the video. As always, Spooky Gang, y'all already know how we rocking. There for sure will be a banger out next week. So until next time, Spooky Gang, y'all stay blessed and y'all stay spooky.